Why leadership and mentorship does not need to fail us. Trust and confidence. Two of the things we value, two of the things we know we want, two of the things we know we need. But yet, so regrettably, we're in a moment of severe crises of leadership and failing trust in our institutions. Over the past 17 years, the Edelman Barometer for Trust has measured confidence and credibility in our institutions and the people behind them. And there's been a steady decline each and every year. There's been a fall-off in our trust and our confidence. It goes well beyond politics, but let's start in government. In government and media, the trust factor is at basically an all-time low of approximately 40%. What about the institutions of business and even NGOs? The trust factor is only at about 50%. None of the major institutions are immune to the current distrust of the system. And it gets even worse if we double-click behind the people that lead those institutions. Look at CEOs. CEOs currently have a trust factor of about mid-30-ish% on a good day. But what is really alarming is what impacts each and every one of us that's in a workplace. A workplace that's supposed to give you independence, development, care, and some level of mentorship beyond earnings. Employee engagement as measured by Gallup and defined as having some sense of interest and some intention of commitment to your job has been stagnant at about 32 to 33% over the past decade. Now let me do the inverse of that to make that point more stark. 67% of us in the workforce today are either indifferent or want to quit our job. But yet I am optimistic. Why does leadership and mentorship not need to fail us? We need to first answer three big questions. What does it even mean to be a good leader? Why is it so hard? And what can we collectively do about it as a response to the failing institutions and lack of confidence and crises in leadership? The first question, what does good leadership mean? I've been so privileged over 20 years to be given the gift of leading multiple organizations and mentoring several people. And equally, I've had the gift of being a beneficiary of great leadership and great mentorship by some phenomenal human beings. Human beings that, of course, include my parents, teachers, and yes, business colleagues, who sometimes just often said those four simple words, I believe in you. I believe in you. What is good leadership? What does it mean? Because of the great leadership I've had for the past 5 years, I've reflected over the 50 founders that we have invested in. I've thought about the times when we made real good business decisions and the times when we just had a misjudgment on the character of a person. And over 5 years, I've looked to doing research and writing on some 40,000 entrepreneurs and 100 case studies in depth of leaders across all walks, religion, culture, arts, sports, business, entrepreneurship, military, and government, to try to see what is that common thing that binds good leadership. And unequivocally, it's one simple thing. At its root, good leadership equates with good people. We use this phrase a lot, good people. He's a good person, she's a good person, they're good people. You know, you kind of know it when you feel it and see it. Each of you can imagine a moment where you might have felt a little more inspired, a little more supported. But bringing definition to that word and accuracy and precision is so difficult. So how do we define good leadership and good people? There are two dimensions to start with. The first component of good leadership and good people is this: people committing to character as much as competency and confidence. We have had an unbelievable bias of leadership of confidence and competency over leadership of character. As the current dean of Harvard Business School has said, who is one of those good people, to a recent incoming class, what this institution has been so long on is teaching goodness of competency, but relatively short on teaching and cultivating leadership of character. This is what we must do for the next generation. It's not that leadership of confidence doesn't matter, and clearly competencies matter. But if we have those without a foundation of character and values, you have nothing and you have short-term leadership. What's the second dimension? Really special, good people and great leaders are people who help others become better versions of themselves. Think of those people who you've interacted with, who help you feel a higher inner expression of your true inner self. Good people aren't people seeking to be starstruck. They aren't people seeking followership. They're people, as Tom Peters said, they're not leaders seeking followers. They are leaders who are in the business of producing other leaders. They understand leadership is a duty to serve. But with that, how do we bring some common standards, common values, and common language so that we can have a dialogue around how we cultivate the values that underpin leadership of character and leadership of goodness? There are three cornerstone values: truth, compassion, and wholeness. What is truth? Truth begins with humility. It extends to the practice of self-awareness, understanding our biases, our strengths and weaknesses, and it culminates in the practice of integrity, where integrity really means living each day in self-congruence, where we actually do what we say, where we actually say what we think, where we actually think what we feel, and we understand how we feel is who we are. With a foundation of truth, you have the capacity for compassion. Leadership is a duty to serve. We need more compassionate leadership. Compassion begins with openness. It extends to practicing empathy, where we can transpose ourselves into the shoes of another such that we can feel that we can feel exactly as that other person. And ultimately, it's about acts of generosity. Acting with kindness, acting with mentorship. Understanding that leadership is a privilege, it is a duty to serve. And wholeness. What is wholeness? Wholeness should be our new definition for success. That is the asymptotic goal. The asymptotic goal is not success as winning or losing. It's not about a winner-take-all. It is, as John Wooden, the great NCAA basketball coach, once said, wholeness and success is having self-satisfaction and peace with oneself, knowing that we have done the best to which we are capable to that calling we are seeking. He has said there are games that they were outscored and they did not feel like they had lost. And there were days when they outscored the opponent, but they did not feel like they had won. The best games are when both teams walked off and you did not know who won or lost. We have to move beyond this zero-sum game. We have to move beyond the axiom of the traditional definition by Milton Friedman of business that the only purpose of business is to maximize profit. Wholeness is about looking at the bigger picture, the collective that we now need to see across all stakeholders. So if we understand those two dimensions, we need people of character, we need people who can help others reach a higher inner expression around truth, compassion, and wholeness. Why is this so hard? It seems easy to intellectualize. It's so hard because we live in the real world. And in the real world, we have everyday tensions that face us, extrinsic realities. 5 tensions, such as pragmatism versus idealism. What's your ideal vision? How do you pragmatically execute against it? Grit versus acceptance. The will to keep going versus when to know to give in. Our vulnerabilities versus our conviction. or what I call the tightrope of entrepreneurship, embracing the risk-taking as our vulnerabilities while having a sense of conviction of the purpose-driven vision. And idiosyncrasies versus connectivity, the pixie dust of quirks that make us each special and human, our idiosyncrasies, but yet a deep human desire to connect to some common denominator and a greater whole. And perhaps the biggest and toughest tension of all, short-termism versus long-termism. This is what is killing goodness in the system of leadership and institutions. We have a cognitive bias towards short-termism. What Metcalf has said, we overestimate the short term and underestimate the long term. Our life is a sprint when it should be thought of as a marathon. Short-termism is killing innovation, good culture, and good leadership. The Mona Lisa, Da Vinci's masterpiece, 10 years to complete every immaculate stroke, every precision of shadow and light, a decade. We all know good things take time. But yet, we have long-term problems and long-term opportunities, but we act and think with short-term actions. Think in politics. Every 2 years, we're raising capital as opposed to solving big social issues. Think in education. Is it about learning or about testing? And in my own industry, short-termism. How often do we think about the exit strategy before anyone's had a discussion on the frickin' entry strategy? Microwave capitalism has surrounded us, value capture over value creation. So what can we do about it? There's a collective response we can do. And there are 3 things I want to leave you with. First, think of goodness in terms of a daily guiding principle. Second, what are the heuristics and habits we can do daily to practice goodness? And third, can we, when given the opportunity, ask better questions? A guiding principle for goodness. The great jazz legend, Herbie Hancock, 14-time Grammy Award winner, when asked the question, how is it that you are such an amazing and awesome musician over 5 decades? You have traversed the landscape of classical jazz, classical music, hip-hop, funk, electronic, to modern jazz. How is it possible? And he answers with this. I remember that first and foremost, I'm a human being. I'm a human being that happens to be a musician. We need to put the humanity back in to business and institutions. The humanity and humanities must be re-injected. We have lost that human factor. Live by a guiding principle of people first. The next time you have a decision to make, ask yourself, what's the human factor? Who are the people that will be impacted? Be people first. How about a heuristic and daily habit you can take with you? I was so privileged, as I said, to have had some superlative mentors. One of them was Jay Chiat. He founded TBWA Chiat Day, one of the greatest advertising firms ever in history, a creative icon. And he died, unfortunately, 70 years too young of cancer. And before he left us, we had some conversations. And he asked me to remember to maintain openness and optimism. Jay had an unbelievable gift when anyone approached him with an idea to do something special. And I ask you to consider this when someone approaches you with an idea. 24/3. Someone approaches you with an idea. Can you wait 24 seconds before saying something? If you can wait 24 seconds, might you wait 24 minutes to not criticize the idea? And if you can wait 24 minutes, is it possible to actually wait 24 hours to think about every reason why that idea might work over all the reasons why it won't? The optimism rule, 24/3. Practice goodness daily. This is compassionate leadership. This is openness. Now, I've said that I'm optimistic about a new model for leadership, a new model that can save the failing institutions. And it starts with each of us. It starts with each of us, because if good leadership is good people, by extension, anyone who's a good person has the capacity to be a good and even great leader. Every day we are faced with opportunities to mentor, help, and cultivate and reach and realize people's full potential. Mentorship and CEOship and leadership are fancy terms put on by institutions and business schools. Many of us are natural mentors. But here are 5 questions you might consider next time someone comes to you for advice. What is it that you're really trying to achieve? What is it within you that is a superpower or natural capability that can help you get there? What's slowing you down? What are you going to change tomorrow about that? And then, how can I help? These 5 questions effectively go back to the root of what is being human in leadership. It's effectively understanding that mentorship is not a check-the-box activity like it's become in several institutions. It starts with an authentic relationship that means authentic listening. Authentic listening means asking some questions. What is it you're really trying to achieve? What is special about you that can get you there? What's slowing you down? What are you going to do different? Then how I can help, as opposed to, how can I help you? We have a mentoring session. Let's move on. So, I leave you with this thought and challenge. Goodness is within all of us. Leadership and mentorship does not need to fail us. Anyone that has goodness and wants to express it is a natural-born leader and is a natural-born mentor. What if each of us just picked in our own minds 10 people over the marathon of our life? 10 people who we would positively imprint goodness on, who we would work to give truth, compassion, and wholeness toward, so that they can be a higher expression of their inner selves. Pick 10 people. And what if those 10 people passed it on to another 10, and those 10 another 10? It sounds audacious, it sounds idealistic, that helping 10 people who help another 10, who help another 10, might actually make profound and meaningful global change. And at times when you're doing it, I'm sure it just feels like a drop in the ocean. But remember the following. Every single river, every single ocean, and yes, every single waterfall begins with one single drop. Thank you.